Okay, welcome everyone. I was asked by Epic Games to be here today and talk about Unreal Engine 4 and my game, Solus. So this is what's going to happen over the next 45 minutes. I'm going to first briefly introduce myself. I'm going to briefly introduce the game so you have an understanding of what we're actually doing and how we're applying Unreal Engine 4. Then I'm going to switch to the editor, and I'm going to show you Blueprint, which is the visual scripting system in Unreal Engine 4. I'm going to build part of my game, very small part, but I'm going to build part of it live on stage, so you all get an understanding of exactly what Blueprint is, the workflow, how to get going with it, how you would approach building things. And then once everyone understood what Blueprint is, I will switch over to the rest of my game, and I'm going to talk you through everything I've done in my game and exactly how Unreal Engine 4 has helped me, and how I basically couldn't have done it without the engine. Okay. And then if there is some time left, hopefully there's some time for questions. Okay. Actually, before we start, how many of you have worked with Unreal Engine 4? You can raise your hands. It's about, what is it, 35%, 40%? Okay. Right, so let's start here. My name is Sjoerd Jong. I'm Dutch-Belgian. I've been living in Sweden for 6-7 years, though. I'm also known as Haurensis online. I've been doing this for 15 years. I've been working with Unreal Engine since 1999, so I've gone through all 4 generations of the engine. I've worked on 7 commercially released Unreal Engine games. I've built over 100+ levels for Unreal Engine games. And I run my own website, like an Unreal Engine tutorial website, and I've gathered over 1.8 million visitors for that over the past couple of years as well. I do a lot of things, so I'll just get started. I also have my own indie company in Sweden. We did The Ball and A Mechanical, The Ball in 2010, A Mechanical 2012 and 2013. Both Unreal Engine games, of course. I also do consulting for companies, so I help companies using the Unreal Engine. I help them out with advice on how to approach things. I also do production, actually building things for them. So over the years in my career, I worked for 19 different clients and employers doing that, almost all of them Unreal Engine related. And lastly, I'm also responsible for the Education Future Games in Stockholm, where I handle the industry contacts, internships, that kind of stuff. So I do a whole lot of stuff, and the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is going to be obvious at the end of the presentation. Okay? Good. So then I'm going to show a small teaser of my game, so you get a bit more in the mood of what the game is. There's no gameplay, just video. Okay, so that's my game. Very briefly, what it's about. It's a survival exploration game, first person. The backstory goes that Earth is on the brink of destruction, so something major is going to happen to the planet. It's going to get completely destroyed. Nothing can be done about it. So mankind figures out they're going to build a couple of big spaceships and send them to nearby solar systems where we've detected planets that seem suitable for life, except no one has ever been there, sent a satellite there. I mean, we have no clue what it is, but it seems suitable. Just as a last resort, you're on one of those ships. Ship arrives at the planet, something terrible happens, it gets attacked, technical malfunction, whatever, the player doesn't know, and you crash land on the island, on the planet. You also seem to be the only one who survived the crash, so you're now stuck on an alien planet, while Earth may no longer be around, you're stuck on an island, and everyone is dead. Just to make it a bit depressive. Okay? So it's like Robinson Crusoe on steroids. That's the game. So from there on, as you saw, there were buildings in there, so clearly something else has been on this planet. There doesn't seem to be anyone around anymore. There's no animals, there's no insects, there's absolutely nothing, but something seems to have happened there. So it's, the game is based on finding out what has happened and surviving the very harsh climate. It has extreme weather, very warm, very cold, disasters, etc. I'll show more of the game later. But that's the basic setup of the game. So I'm going for a lot of emphasis on environment and atmosphere, which is kind of my strong. I'm good at that, so I went for a game that just emphasizes what I'm good at. So, good. So let me start or switch to the editor. So here we have Unreal Engine 4, the editor. I have a very basic level here just to mess around in for the time being. So this is just a very basic white level. And what I'm going to do now is I want to build lightning. So in the video, you saw these lightning strikes coming down from the sky. I want to build that. I want to build a simple script that spawns lightning at random locations. And I'm going to do this in 3 layers. So I'm going to have 3 scripts, and they will interact with each other in a very basic way, because I mean, I have limited time, and it's an introduction. But I will have 3 scripts. So first of all, I need one script that just handles one single lightning strike. Then I need a script that manages where it strikes. So the second script, that's a management script, that will spawn those lightning strikes at random locations. And then I will use the level script to trigger the management script, to basically manage the manager, if you want to call it like that. That's what we're going to go for. So I'm going to start off by making a new blueprint. We have the content browser here that just contains everything in the game, you know, textures, particles, all those kind of things. So I have an empty location here. I'm going to make a new blueprint in here. So create new blueprint script. Then it asks you what to base it on. If you pick a different type of parent class, you'll get different functionality available. I'm going to simply pick actor. That's the most neutral one. So that's just a neutral empty base to work with, basically. So I'll take that. I'll name it something. And it's hard to type on a laptop for me. Especially when I press cap locks. Damn it, sorry. Small keyboard. And I press caps lock all the way. So, so when I double click that script, I get this. This is the blueprint. And you can see here you have add components. You have an empty 3D space here. There's nothing there. Might be hard to see there, but it's a grid. You can see there's a very faint grid running here. And on the left, you have components. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 2 particles. 1 particle for the actual strike coming down, and 1 particle for where it hits. I need like smoke or a flash. I need some kind of impact particle. So I'm going to add those 2 first, and then I'm going to leave this one for the time being and switch to the management script. I'm going to do both simultaneously. It's easier that way. So I have a particle set up already in there. That's the hit, and that's the strike. So let's do the strike first. You can see it shows up in the system. So by having it selected in the content browser, it now shows up in there. So add particle system that. I'll call that strike or so. And then the other one. So lightning hit. I can show you here actually. See, this is just a single sprite that comes down and strikes the ground, and the other one I'm going to use is just this, see? It's a flash and then you get some smoke. It's very simple particles. So I'll add that one as well. There we go. And you can see this would work. If I add this to the level right now, it's going to work. It's not going to be very good, but it's going to work. Let me scale this down a little bit more so it's a bit more visible. And then I'll drag this into the level. And you can see it immediately starts. If I were to start the game, it would also do that. It asks if you want to compile, you should compile blueprints, but you can see it's struck there and that's it. Right, so it works, but obviously it's not very good. So then the management script, so I'll make a second blueprint. Again, based on actor, just going for something neutral. I'll call that can't type, but ignore the typing. And this one will spawn the other one. Then I can't really use that. I mean, I can't use components to do that. That would be hard to do. Well, technically it's doable, but it's not going to suffice for what I want to do. So I'm simply going to add one single component to it, and it's called a billboard. That will make sure there's an icon appearing just for the sake of being able to see it. Because if I add this to the level later on, I wouldn't be able to see it otherwise. So just for that sake. And then I'm going to go to the graph. So you have these 3 buttons here. And the graph is where most of it happens. This is the actual Visual Script editor. So in here, I'm going to say it should do stuff. Now, of course, with scripting, there's always a million different ways of doing it. So this is just going to be my way, or I prefer it for a couple of reasons. But I'm going to go for a tick event. So when you want to get stuff started, of course, you need to have some kind of event. Something has to start it. So what starts this thing from running? I mean, you could add begin play, for example. So event begin play. Or alternatively, you can have a tick event, which runs all the time. I'm going to go for that. Of course, that runs all the time, so I'm going to add a delay behind it instead. And I'm going to set that to, say, 1 second for the time being. That delay will stop the event. So, I mean, only one signal comes out every second. So every second, I want it to spawn the other blueprint. That's simply what I'm trying to do right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the other blueprint here. And I'm going to say spawn actor. Spawn actor from class, and actually that one should be that. And there we go. So now after every second it will spawn this one. We still need to define the transform though, because if I were to compile this, it's going to complain. It fails. See, it has no transform. So it needs to know where to spawn it. So I'm going to drag from here and do make transform. So I can enter location, rotation, and scale. I mean, I don't really need rotation and scale. They'll work anyway. I mostly need location. And actually, let's just try like this to begin with. I'll just save for safety's sake. Let me delete the existing blueprint that's in the level here, if I find delete. And I'll add the management script instead. There you can see it has an icon. I know 0, 0 is about somewhere here underneath the ground. So I should be able to see something there when I play this. So I mean, it's very basic, but every second we have a lightning strike. So that's the start, but we need several more stuff to it. I mean, first of all, it has to be in a random location in a box, not just the same point. We also would like to have like lightning where it flashes, like actual light, that fades in and fades out where it hits. And I'm not going to do that today, but you would, for example, add damage. Where it hits, it has to apply damage. In case a player was standing there, he should be able to be damaged by it. And also, we need to be able to detect the ground, because the ground isn't always flat. There might be mountains or something, so we need to be able to know where the ground is so the lightning hits the ground. So those are the steps I want to take now. First, we can do the random location, actually. Let's start there. So we have location. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to break that vector, or I'm going to make it, but therefore break it. So I get x and y and z. Now z I'll just leave at 0, or let's just put it at 400 because the ground is a bit higher than 0 actually. But x and y, I want them random. So I'm going to do random float in range. Excuse my typing really. Random float in range, and let's just copy that over and add it to y as well. And now I could say, well, it should probably go from minus 2000 or so to 2000 there. Likewise there. So we have a box 4,000 units across in both directions. Right. Let's try that. And you can see it's random. It's still a small box. 2,000 units is not that much, so it's still kind of in the same neighborhood, but it's random. Okay. Then let's see. Let's make sure it actually detects the ground, because that's something we definitely need as well. So I'm going to add a very quick, simple mesh here. I have a couple of big meshes here. Let's just get anything that's fairly big. I have a couple of rocky landscape things. I'll just add this, and I'll just make it really ugly, so ignore the ugliness. I'm just going to scale it a lot. Something. Again, it's rather ugly. And actually, I have this platform here, so I'm going to move this closer so I can see it from above. And let's play from here. So you can see this goes through the rock. I need to move the rock a bit, but it's going to go through. So I need to know where the ground is. And I can detect where the ground is by tracing it. So I'm going to do a single line trace by channel, I think it was. Single line trace by channel. Then I have this. And I'm going to do that before I spawn the object. I'm going to disconnect this and move this back for a moment. Or actually, yeah. So I'm going to disconnect this as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to still take a random point somewhere in a box. So I still keep that aspect of it. Let's just set that to 0 to be correct. And that's going to be the end. That's where the trace will end. And where the trace will start is that same random location, but plus a certain height. It has to start above and then go down, So I'm going to add to the vector. And I'm going to add on Z, I don't know, something big, 5,000 or so. Oops. And that goes there. It works. I can set debug visible, so you can see what's happening later on. And what I'm going to do then is I'm going to get out hit. This is where it hits. I will break that apart. And then I know the impact or the location where it hits. And that's the location where the lightning will be spawned. Therefore, it detects the ground. I think that should do. Let's try if that works. Let me make the mesh even wider so it doesn't miss it. You can see it hits on top. You can see the red lines, that's the trace. You can see where the trace starts, and you can see it detects the top of the surface. So now we have lightning detecting the ground. That's nice. One more step before I want to move forward is I need to actually have a light that fades in and fades out where it hits. Because right now it's just a particle. I'm going to turn off the debug here. And then I'll switch back to the first one, actually, because it's the first one that's one single lightning strike. That's the one that should have the light coming along with it. So in here, first of all, there's one small issue here, is that the impact at the bottom happens before the lightning strike is actually reaches the bottom. So I'm going to make sure this doesn't play automatically. So auto-activate, it says here. It's very small text, hard to see, but it says auto-activate off, so it doesn't start by itself. And instead, I will do on begin play after 300 milliseconds, after a delay of 300, so 0.3. Then I activate that lightning hit particle. And on the left side, we have variables. So these variables they're variables. They also contain all the components. So here I have the strike thing. You can see my beautiful capital letters. But I dragged it in. I get it in the event graph, and then I will activate that. And this activates it after 0.3 seconds. So we solved the fact that it's a bit out of sync. Then the light. I could actually have a light component in here. So I could add a point light in here as a component. I can also just spawn a component while the game is running. So I don't have to define all the components over here. So in the graph, I'm going to do add point light component. After 0.3 seconds as well, because it happens at the same time. I mean, that's the impact. Let me very quickly turn off some properties and set the color. So here you have the color and the brightness and all that. So I'll just quickly set it to something lighting niche. And actually, I set the brightness, the intensity to 0, because I'm going to fade it in later. And I set the radius to 0. Because the radius and the brightness should fade in. So they start at 0, then they fade in. I mean, it flashes in, and then the light starts to disappear again. So that's what I'm after. The light, you can see return value. This is the light that gets spawned. So everything in Blueprint is context sensitive, and that's a big improvement over Kismet or over other systems. If you right-click, or if you get any menu anywhere, you only see the options that are available for this specific type of thing. So you can see this is a point light component. So this only shows the possibilities for a point light component. That makes it much easier for new people to get into, because you only see the possibilities and the options you can truly use. So in here, I want to set radius and brightness. So I'll do set radius. And I'll do this again, set brightness. Like so, but then I would just set a number, right? That doesn't fade. A couple of different ways of doing fading. I like a timeline, also for the sake of presentation. So I'm going to add a timeline in between. And a timeline is a curve editor, so it allows me to edit the curve and the value of the radius and the brightness. So let's just add that in between these two. So when he spawns the component, then he also starts he begins to play the curve animation, so play from start. And while that one runs, he will continuously update these two. Okay. And we just need to hook these two up, and we're set. If you double-click the timeline, you get into the timeline editor, and you can add different tracks. So I'm going to add a float track, just want a single number. It asks for a name, but I'm going to ignore that actually. I'll set the length to 1 second, and I'll add 3 points. First point starts at 0 and time 0. The next one starts at, actually is the end, so, sorry, it ends at 0, but the time is 1. And this is it's 1 there and 0.1 or something. So then we have this. It very quickly fades in, yeah, and then it slowly fades out. I could connect it there. It's not really good though, because I only have a value of 1, and brightness 1 or radius 1 isn't very big. I could, of course, make the numbers in this one bigger, but I personally find it easier to use a lerp, linear interpolate, in between, so I'll just do that. I'll connect it there also, and then that. And I'll say you should go from 0 to 4000, I'd say, for radius, and for brightness, 30 or something. That probably works. And then I have this script, and that should do. So let's try. And you can see there's a light there, and it has lights. It's not 100% ideal yet. The light actually spawns where it hits the ground, which isn't very good, because then the light is pretty much almost submerged in the ground where it hits. So you kind of want to offset the light a little bit upwards. But other than that, it seems to work. So I'm going to very quickly fix that offset, and I'm going to make sure that the level script can start the management script spawning lightning. And then I'll move on to my game. Good. I need to offset it. So here where it says add point light component, it says relative transform. That's where I can offset it. So let's use that. Let's do a make transform again. This is relative transform, so it's not in world coordinates. This is wherever the actor is plus this. So wherever the actor is plus, say, 400 units. So it's 400 units above wherever it hits. That will do that. And then I need to make the level script trigger all of this. A lot of different ways of doing this. Let's just say, let's just add a bool in between here, for example. So what I can have is I can add a variable on the left, And I'm going to add a bool. You can see I have a lot of different types of variable, but I'm just going to add a simple bool, true, false, like lightning active, true, false. And I'll call that well, lightning active then. I'll get that in here, and I'll add a branch. A branch is just to compare true, false. You know, is it true? Then execute that. Is it false? Then execute this. And if true, it will do it. Otherwise, it doesn't. This one, let's compile for a moment, has a default value. It says here, here's the value of the bool, all the way at the bottom there. It says true or false. So let's say it's by default false, as it already is. But I need to be able to reach this one from the level script. So I'm gonna, there's an eye here on the right of it, small button there. I'm gonna click that, and that will expose it to other stuff. Like it will show up in the properties and so on. I can show you that if I take it away and I compile it, and I look in the level where the thing is located. Here, these are the properties of the lightning management blueprint in the level there, and you can see there's nothing in here of importance. But if I were to click the eye and compile again, then it shows up over here, see? So this is the bool I just made. So then then the level designer can just turn things on and off, I mean, in the properties. Either way, once we have that, we can then use the level blueprint. So at the top here, we have the level blueprint. This is similar to Kismet in Unleashed 3. So it's a blueprint script, but it's tied to the level. So that's what you would use for all kinds of stuff, like, you know, triggering doors and anything you would do in a level, triggering AI, combat, those kind of things. And then in here, you could have some kind of event. I'm running a bit short on time, so I'm just going to do something very simple here and say, because this doesn't really help the design, I mean, I'm just going to do on begin play after 3 seconds. After 3 seconds, the bool will be turned on. Set lightning active. And that's it. So you can see in the level blueprint, the properties from this one, this is the lightning management script, show up over here as well. And this whole system will work. Okay. I'm going to immediately skip forward to my game, because I don't have that much time left. So this seems to be working. Let's load up my game. Good. So this is the level from the video. Let me try to make it a little bit more bigger and manageable, and speed up the camera a bit. Okay, so this is one of my big levels. It's the most finished level, so I always use this for my demoing. I have a lot of stuff in here. Actually, it's a very extensive underground as well. So let me turn off lightning for a moment and show you everything that's underground. A lot of caves. See, it just keeps on going. It's a little bit too big, really. We're still working on this, but for the sake of presentation, I just copy-pasted the entire thing together, so it keeps on going. I can show you what I've done. So let me just play the game very briefly, or let me actually first show you the sky. And I'm going to show you a lot of features that I've done, and I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you all of this. Okay. So first of all, we got the sky. The entire sky, as you saw in the video, it has dynamic day and night. It has dynamic weather, so it can be anything from like almost clear skies to a little bit overcast to like thunderstorms, lightning striking. I have tornadoes nowadays as well. They're not entirely finished yet. Might be able to show you that. But you can actually be hit by a tornado and so on. I got these planets. I got the tide. So the ocean or the sea actually goes up and down depending on the position of the biggest planet, the biggest moon. I can show you if I just change the slider here on the sky. You can see the lighting change. The sun doesn't show up in the editor. When I play the game, the sun shows up. But see, the whole thing just works, and so on. Let me play the game. Right, so you got this pocket computer at the bottom, for example. That tracks how many, well, it tracks your health, obviously. It tracks the body temperature and calories and food and all that. I mean, that's kind of simple. But most importantly, it actually tracks the temperature of the world. It tracks humidity. It tracks the wind speed. The plants are tied into the wind speed, so the foliage actually moves faster. The wind gets brighter, like the fog particles get brighter. In fact, even the ocean starts to move faster if there's more wind, the waves. The humidity is correctly tied to the time of the day. I mean, the whole thing is completely controlled. I got these flowers here, for example. If it gets night, the flowers will close, so they will actually close when the sun disappears. I have item crafting, so I put a couple of items there in the corner, so let me quickly walk there. And I'm gonna speed up the walk speed so it's just easy to see. So I got this system so you can look at stuff. The PDA tells you what it is. It tells you can actually drink it, so let me just pick it up and then I can drink it. So now I drank it. Still work in progress, but you're getting the point. You can drop it again as well. There's a pipe here, for example, and there's a can here. I can actually use the pipe to open the can. So then I open the can and then I smashed open the can. It's a bit weird, maybe. The next step is even weirder, but and then you can eat it and it will sound like a horse. So that's perfect.
Worse.
But I'm gonna make a torch. The torch is the most complex system I have in here right now, so it's probably pretty dark here. I'm just gonna go in the cave, get a few items and go back, so endure the darkness. So here's my torch system. Use 2 rocks to make 1 sharp rock. So you smash the rocks together was my idea. So now I have a sharp rock, then you use the sharp rock to cut down roots hanging in the various caves. Then you get that. This looks really weird, I know. Because it looks like a weird blob of something. But then you have roots that you can attach to a pipe, meaning you have something burnable on a pipe, on a stick. So let me go back outside. And I have a pipe, so I'm dropping the pipe. And all the crafting, I want to do it in-game, because I don't want to have, I don't want menus and all that. I want it to be as immersive as possible, so everything should happen in-game. So I attach that on top of it, then you have this weird thing. Then you can put that in oil, so it's more suitable for fire. So I have a barrel of oil here. Now it's oiled, and then I have fire here, and you can make it turn it into fire. I mean, light it up, so yay. It will give light, it has a sound. It actually has a temperature offset. You can see the numbers get a bit yellow. In fact, the temperature offset is gradual, so if you walk away from it, the temperature drops, or see, it's warmer nearby, and so on. And I have a lot more of those systems. I mean, I have a lot of stuff in here. If you go underground, it automatically changes the atmosphere. It starts spawning dust particles. The whole thing changes. I'm doing all kinds of other stuff as well. You can actually sleep, those kind of things, and so on. And the reason why I'm bringing all of this up, and this is really the point of why I'm here, everything you just saw, not a line of code has been written. Nothing. Okay? Absolutely nothing. So that's not to say you don't need to code to make games in Unreal Engine 4. I mean, of course, coding is very important, but you can get away, but you can get really far not writing any code. And for me, that's really important, because I'm actually a level designer. That's how I started out. And then I do a lot of other stuff now. Most of what you see here is stuff I've done. There's some exceptions, but the sky, all the art and the art direction, all that stuff is mine. So I do a lot of art, I do materials, I do particles, I do all that kind of stuff. But I'm an absolute terrible programmer. I'm really, really bad at programming. In fact, I can tell you that I once tried to write a Python script, and that's not even hardcore programming, you know. And the furthest I managed to get was that I did, I could enter a number and it would run a specific calculation on that. That's the furthest I got with programming. Awesome, isn't it? But if you give me Unreal Engine 4, I can make all of that functionality. I can make a PDA that updates, I can make an atmosphere system, I can make an inventory system, I can make, you know, rising tide, I can do all that stuff. And not only can I do all that stuff on my own as a designer, I did it in a very small amount of time, because, and you saw in the beginning of the presentation, I do a lot of stuff. I work like 80 hours a week. I have so many things going on at the same time. And you also saw in the video, when the video started, it said 2.5 months of work or something, whatever it was. The video is a bit older by now. But it really was built like that. I have so very little time that the only way I can get to this point is if the technology I use, if the engine I use just works. It just needs to work. I just need to have all the tools that I'm after. I don't want to be looking for third-party plugins. Maybe the third-party plugins don't work anymore. Maybe the guy that built them he's no longer around, maybe it's not compatible with a new version, I don't want to write my own tools, I don't want to do any of that, I just want to start the stuff and build my game. And that's what I need Online Engine 4 for. And I always say, because I mean, to my students in Stockholm, I always say, I want to spend all my time on making a game cool. I don't want to spend all my time on making a game work. That step, that first step, that should be like 10-20% of the time, but 80% or so of the time should go on making the game cool. So I don't want to be stuck on that first stage. I just want to make something cool. So I need technology that allows me to do that. And Unreal definitely does that. I can tell you why I originally started with Unreal. It's because it's so artist and designer focused. It's so visual. You had, even in Unreal Engine 1, 15 years ago, you had so many tools that none of the other engines back then had. So many visual tools. Like you could actually see colored lighting, and lighting in the viewport back then was a huge thing. And that really attracted me, and that same thing is still very much so around now. With Blueprint, with all the tools, with a complex material editor, everything you need. And so that really put me in Unreal, and it's just unbelievable how far I get. I feel so empowered by this as well, and that's the thing. Blueprint is not about replacing programmers. So clearly some of the things I've done here, I'm going to open up my scripts in a moment, some of the things I've done here are completely over the top, and if you would be a company and you would ask my professional opinion on how should we build this in our company, I'm going to tell you, don't do this, okay? But I'm working on my own, almost. I mean, I have a team, but I did a lot of this on my own, and for me this was the best way to go. But it does prove that if you want to build stuff on your own, or you want to prototype things, or you want to try things out, you can actually pull it off. And that's really, really nice. And I had a perfect example of that this last weekend, because I have a game, and my game is all about walking almost. I mean, I have a risk that I get a walking simulator. It's not going to be very nice. So I figured, what can I do with a simple act of walking? You know, so I figured, okay, maybe there should be skill involved in walking. Like, walking should be simple, but if you want to get better at walking, maybe you should be able to do that. Maybe if you want to be a really skilled player, or you want to apply different tactics, you should be able to do that. So I figured, right, one thing is when you look down, you should probably slow down. I mean, in real life, you don't keep running at the same speed when you look down or when you look up. So I'm going to gradually increase or decrease the walking speed dependent on your view pitch. And also what I figured, if you go uphill, you don't run the same speed in real life, you will slow down. In all games, you always run the same speed. So I figured if I can make the game understand how what the slope is, slope up or down, that you're walking on, and if I can also tie that into the jumping system, then I can make for a system where you can do more skilled jumps if you pay attention to the terrain, for example. That's my thinking. I'm not entirely done there yet, but that's my thinking. You know, I worked for a lot of big companies. I worked with in-house engines as well. You know, I was at Guerrilla Games, at Starbreeze, in-house engines. And every time you have an idea there in that direction, you're gonna have to get a meeting with someone. You know, you have to request a meeting, then a producer might join in, then you have to go talk to a programmer. I mean, you have to convince them of your idea, you have to communicate your idea, then you have to wait a week until that guy has time maybe. I mean, it gets not very efficient, I think. But here, I had that idea last weekend, I started up the editor, I spent 15 minutes in Blueprint, and I got it working. It might need tweaking, but all the stuff I just described, I got that working. So you can see if I look down, I move, but it goes much slower than it used to be. See, now it's faster. And it detects the slopes. It's hard to see on the screen probably, but you slow down. See, now it actually is slower than if you go downhill. And the thing is, I can just try my stuff. I got an idea as a designer, I can just do it. That's very, very nice. That's exactly why I use Unreal. I can just do it. I'll open up some of my scripts. They got a bit out of hand. Some of it is not as clean as it should be, so... This is the sky blueprint. So the entire sky and the entire weather. I'm running out of time, I think. Do I run out of time? 2 minutes. Oh, 2 minutes. Okay, one last thing and I'll have time for some questions. This entire sky is one giant blueprint. So it is one giant system. I can make any level I want, just drag it in, and I got the entire weather and sky system at once. And yeah, it got a bit out of hand, so it's all of this. So it looks a bit intimidating, but it's actually a lot of copy-pasting. You can see it's copy-pasting, it's just different values and all that. And I could have actually done this clean, because you got a lot of advanced features here. You got macros, you got functions. So these blocks you got here, you can actually make one of those blocks yourself in Blueprint. So you can make a set of Blueprint blocks, and then it gets combined a new block, and you can reuse it. Or you can use C++, of course, tie this into C++, make those blocks in C++, and you have a whole interaction there. can see the components here. This is the entire sky. I got the player, for example. The player got it's a bit big as well. It's hard with the screen size. So this is the player. I did the whole item system. I mean, this should have actually been C++, but it works. So I got an item system, inventory, and a crafting system in pure Blueprint. And some other things like respawn, damage, and so on. So you can actually use it to build your whole game. And that's mightily impressive, I think. I feel so empowered by this. I mean, I never was able to do all of this stuff, but since Unreal Engine 4, I can do all of this stuff. And it frees up time for the programmer. This is not about replacing programmers. This is about empowering designers and artists, so the programmers can focus on more serious stuff than simple, design things, trying out designs, tweaking, all that kind of stuff. And that it definitely does. I should probably move on to some questions, given the time. I think there are microphones coming. Does anyone have questions? Anyone? Yeah, hard to see with spotlights.
So if somebody else is to pick up that,
yeah,
do they stand a chance, or?
Well, I commented it fairly well. So, but of course, I mean, I could have built some of it cleaner, but it is actually, I mean, it looks intimidating, but most of these parts are actually quite small. See, it's just a lot of different things in the same area, but if you look at part by part, it's actually just a few blocks per part. So I do think it's manageable for people to continue on this. But what we are doing now is, because this is how I started on my own, just prototyping this stuff, right? But now I got a programmer, and he's actually replacing some of it in single blocks. I think it's that one somewhere. I'm not so sure. I mean, for example, he would say, OK, but you got all of this stuff. Let me just write this in C++ and group it together. So we are starting to clean it up. But it has been a very nice process for me to be able to just try my game, build what I want to build, and then we can start cleaning it up, organizing it, streamlining it, extending it, also using C++. And I think that's important. So. Anyone else?
Is there any way to collaborate when building this stuff, like having more than one guy building this thing and exchanging stuff?
You mean multiple people working on one big thing?
Yeah.
Not directly, but I mean, you can just break it up. And that's what we did as well, because the PDA you're holding, that's not in the player, for example. That's a separate script. So you can, of course, just make separate scripts, and just one guy works on that, one guy works on that. That's what I would do. So. Also, from 4 to 7 this afternoon at the Green Lion Bar, we have an Unreal Engine developer meet and greet. Everyone is welcome. It's free entry, free beers. We have a lot of people from Epic there. We're actually sitting there, so yay. So we'll all be there. So if you just want to come have a chat with us, informal, get some free drinks, just join in on the fun. It's just 200 meters from the entrance of the building here. So, anything else? And also, if you want to hear more about my game, just grab me, later today or so. So, do I have time left? More questions? No? Time out? I'm out of time. Okay, well, thank you.